because it reminded me of how the internet works. It's a place with an unrivaled role for education and the spread of culture. And yeah, I thought it was interesting because every year more books are written, more independent artists surface everywhere, and box offices in the movies achieve new records. And education has found the internet as well. We have the massive online courses that reach millions of subscribers eager to learn everywhere. So more information roams the world, and it even moves death metal culture to the remote savannah in Africa. And I thought it was interesting. And it is of course very, very good. This is great, I think. But this free information obviously also puts pressure on traditional legal instruments like copyright, devised to protect and stimulate culture. Worldwide, millions of people are currently infringing on copyright, and although it's unclear how this affects the market exactly, it seems to put a lot of pressure on specific parts of that market. And one of the initial reactions to this infringement, to these high infringement levels, have been deterrence and enforcement. So lawsuits and extrajudicial procedures like the graduate response, so the free strikes legislation that you see in France. You infringe on copyright one time, you get a warning. You do it again, you get another warning. And you do it again. Originally, you would be cut off from the internet. Right now, you will receive a fine. Things like that. So at this moment, the EU is preparing copyright reform as well. And in the Netherlands, the debate will take place in 2 weeks on forbidding downloading from illegal sources as well. Meanwhile, there's a court case against News Service Europe, a huge net provider. And even today, some have suggested that we should move towards graduated response in the Netherlands as well. To us, Bits of Freedom, we are a digital rights NGO in the Netherlands. To us, it's unfortunate that repression, especially aimed at ordinary citizens, is on the table again. First of all, it doesn't work enough. Deterrent attempts surface each year, and piracy levels remain high throughout Europe and throughout the rest of the world. Second of all, those new procedures that aim to make enforcement online easier, they open the door to a diverse range of abuses. So we, for example, saw in Germany, in the US and in the UK and in other places, we saw that lawyers, for example, would find out that people were downloading specific types of content, and instead of actually taking them to trial, they would send them warning letters saying, listen, we know you infringed on our copyrights, you better pay us 2,000 euros or dollars, and if you don't, we will actually sue you. The cost might be much higher, and well, you will never be able to afford that, so you better pay up now. Which is not really about protecting business models, but that's just extortion. And those practices were actually banned in the UK. Those lawyers were put out of practice for a short time, but in the US it's still going on. Another way in which these procedures have been abused is, for example, in notice and takedown. Although I think notice and takedown is a very good procedure, it's also abused as a tool for censorship. And that's also not what copyright is about. But these stringent enforcement procedures also influence creativity and innovation. They create high transaction costs that make any risky new form of innovation a potential train wreck. So using another piece of content, for example, as a building block to create new stuff could end up costing you big time. ACTA, for example, the treaty, which is not going to happen, or is going to happen, wanted to criminalize aiding and abetting infringement. Well, with a law like that, YouTube would never have been possible. But it's also a question of societal support. So at Bits of Freedom, we regularly get emails from people who say they want to do the right thing, and they ask us for advice. So they say, for example, is copying the legally acquired CD from a friend, is that legal? Or is it legal to temporarily send a digital copy of a CD to a friend to see if he likes it, and so he can delete it afterwards? Or is it legal to download a song from a forum or SoundCloud without knowing whether the song has been put there by the rights holder, which could happen? And with these types of questions, the rules tend to say, no, it's not legal, while common sense says yes. And we therefore say that the consumer should never be the target of copyright enforcement. But we understand that culture needs to be stimulated and that artists should be rewarded. In that sense, it helps to know that there is something that actually works. It's actually empirically proven to work, and that is having a great legal alternative that offers some extra value to users. It's not necessarily the price that pulls people towards the Pirate Bay, but it's also ease. And of course that's not enough. The economics of infringement, they leave a hole in the value chain. We see that too. Some platforms are currently making money without returning some of that value to rights holders. So we should facilitate some way of licensing that could make sure that a percentage of that money actually ends up with creators. I mean, YouTube pays billions of dollars this way. And apart from that, we've talked about this today as well. We need to adjust a lot to facilitate the spread of information and to stimulate creativity and education and culture. So we need more and broader exceptions. We need shorter copyright terms, and we need to create more user rights in the new treaties and legislation. In that sense, the Marrakesh Treaty for the Disabled is a positive development, but it's really the only development where legislation actually gave users more rights thus far. It's the exception to the rule, which is a shame. And only by increasing these fair uses or these user rights can we deliver on the promise of this new technology. And that's what it should be about in Brussels. That's what it should be about in The Hague later on in 2 weeks. We should have no enforcement aimed at ordinary citizens, and we should have more broad legitimate users that stimulate creativity. So for the next time, I hope when everybody thinks about copyright, let's think about those cowboy metalheads in Botswana. Thank you.
Well, sometimes I'm thinking, does the law matter? On the one hand, when you start a business, of course, you need to sort all this stuff. But like judges have children, I have them as well. And of course, I tell them, we'll pay the 10 euros a month for Spotify. But my son downloads videos anyway. My daughter says, yeah, I'm not going to buy 20 books when I'm going on holiday. So there's laws and there's reality, in my view. Does this talk all matter today?
It definitely does. It's a very difficult and philosophical question you're actually asking. And I do think that copyright is interesting as an individual right, but mostly because of the attribution that is attached to it. So for example, that someone can see this can be attributed to a certain creator. And so for example, the example you gave in your introductory remarks, you said maybe someone samples a song that I made. Well, it should be, people should know that it's your sample, for example. That would be interesting. But the other side is actually very, I want to say intoxicating, in the sense that copyright is there as a law, but everybody's infringing on it. So this sort of undermines respect for the law, so that would be a bad thing, I would say.
Do you have questions for Floris?
Hadewig from Kemp, Justice Department. Do I understand you correctly that you would completely do away with copyright law? And if I did understand that, do you have an alternative idea? I mean, giving users more rights is one thing, but how are you going to ensure that artists and producers can continue doing what they do?
So I don't propose doing away with copyright completely. I do like the suggestion that was made here to sort of look towards access instead of looking towards property. Of course, I realize this is a big fantasy and something that would never happen because it would require an incredible amount of legislative change in international treaties and then onwards to regional treaties and then onwards to national legislations. But I think it should be important that whatever we do, it should be within the boundaries of certain user rights that we already have, like free speech, like the rules of civil procedure, and the increased focus on deterrence in current copyright law undermines those rights. So, for example, the graduated response, as it is in Ireland, as it is enforced by private players.
Okay. We need an alternative.
No, I know. We do, yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, and maybe that's not the right issue, but what you see happening at the same time is because it doesn't feel like you steal from an artist, but you steal from a record company and you think they steal from me anyway. So more and more what you see is happening is artists do their own stuff, sell it directly to fans. For example, the same daughter I talk about, when she likes something and she buys it off the artist, buys the t-shirt and the whole stuff, that gives a direct relation, and then she understands a lot better why she should do it. She feels a different relation with the artist than she would have done otherwise. And for example, I write books as well, And when I have a publisher, I get €1 a copy, and I can do it myself as well, and I get €10 a copy. So I need to sell a lot less to make the same amount of money. So it's not a rights issue, but there are so many more possibilities now than there used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago. So let's not forget those. Questions?
Emma Winters, Executive Committee leader. Do you feel that there's a chance that if the possibilities for public libraries would be better to do a lot of e-learning, that piracy could be battled in that way? Because what we see now, for instance, in the Netherlands, out of the 20,000 books, e-books that are available, only 5,000 books can be used by libraries as an e-book for lending. And because libraries are usually the best pupil of the class in giving a proper remuneration for lending books.
I think it would be a very good argument to sort of give Professor Dirk Visser to sort of make sure that the e-learning would be possible. I think so, yeah, because every broad interview of the public, they all point towards having legal alternatives, and everybody wants that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.